let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. The Elephantosaurus. Which dinosaur would the elephant have come from, by the way?
It's a difficult one.
Come on, give us your best guess.
The mammals didn't really come. They're like the weird cousins of the dinosaurs. It's all a bit convoluted.
No.
It's, yeah.
They look a bit dinosaur-y.
They do a little bit. That's because of something called convergent evolution, where you've got the same sort of habitats, different sorts of animals, and they converge in the same spot because there's only so many ways to fix a problem. Woolly
mammoth, though, has to have something to do with the elephant.
Yeah, woolly mammoths and elephants and that whole group are very, very closely related.
Okay. The meteorites that wiped the dinosaurs out, they hit the Earth. There was this nuclear winter, lasted 10 years, and everything died in this, not everything, but 2/3 of the world's species died in this ice age. Is that right?
Pretty much, you're pretty much there, really.
Where did they land?
It came from over Scandinavia. Just one big one.
Wow.
It was 11 kilometres across. You're talking the size of Greater London, straight over Scandinavia, over the UK, over the Atlantic, and hit just north of where Mexico is now, in a place called Chicxulub. I went there a few years ago, and we drilled into it with an amazing team of academics. The crater goes 20 miles deep and 120 miles across. And all of the stuff that was in the crater was thrown up into the atmosphere. And it created what we call a peak ring, which was a huge but temporary mountain chain, twice the height of Everest, that just rose up.
Temporary mountain chain?
And then fell down again.
No.
Yeah.
How's that
well, if you chuck a stone into a pond, you get a big ripple, you get a splash.
Yeah.
Now imagine.
But that's liquid, though.
Well, now imagine chucking something that was travelling 72,000 kilometres an hour, that's 11 kilometres across. It's scaling up that puddle and that stone.
All right, so that was travelling at 72,000 kilometres an hour. I know that we wake up on our spaceship every morning travelling at 67,000 miles an hour. Were we heading towards it, or, because if you have a head-on collision, that's much more serious than if you have a sort of rear shunt. What was the trajectory of both these things?
The angle was really unusual. Most asteroids come at quite a broad angle, whereas this one came almost straight down.
Is that why?
So it created a mass. Again, it's like skimming a stone. You make a little bit of a ripple. You chuck a stone straight in. It makes a massive, massive ripple there and splash. It did that.
So
and it
what's
landed.
This myth about the Great Lakes then?
Well, we have had so many asteroids in the past. The whole of our planet is pocked with asteroid marks in Canada, right across Europe, right across at South America. So there are different examples of this, but nothing as big as the one at Chicxulub. That was 66 million years ago. Devastating.
Right. So if people say the Great Lakes are meteorite strikes, but then because then they sort of they get a bit of confidence, don't they? Especially have a glass of wine and go, oh yeah, the ones that wiped out the dinosaurs. A, plural. It's not going to happen. It was one. B, wrong ones.
Absolutely. Those ones were much older. We do know there were asteroid strikes up there. We do know there's a whole bunch of craters up there. We do know that was well before the dinosaurs were extinct. They were quite happily. It was just a bad day for them, whereas the one 66 million years ago ended it.
If we want to go to South America, where you went to see, what do we get to see, not having the credentials and all the right passes and things that you had?
Most people who've been to Mexico, a lot of them will say they've been to the cenotes, these wonderful limestone chasms and caverns underground where you can go swimming and the limestone's been shocked. That was the shock reaction from that initial peak ring. So even though it's thousands of kilometres away, you still saw the shock impact of that. You won't see anything at the site because it's under the sea. So I literally went out to sea on a specialised rig and we drilled 1.5 kilometres into the seabed. So you won't see anything. But
in your days with dinosaurs, right?
Yep.
Even from as a little kid, I know you dreamt about them. Where does that rank as a day? What was it like for you? Was it like Christmas? Were you excited the night before? Did you sleep? And give us 2 other experiences that might be up there with that as far as you're concerned.
For me, it was incredible to see that drill, that core sample coming out and see it looked like a Mr. Whippy in the rock. You could see the devastation, but there was a tiny, thin, only about 2 or 3 mil wide little green layer. That's iridium. That's from space. That was all my Christmases in one. That was up there. I'm going to name drop massively, I'm really sorry. Digging up the world's largest dinosaur with Sir David Attenborough in Argentina was pretty cool, I'm not going to lie.
Did he do any digging? Just out of it? Or does he have people to dig for him?
No, he's on his hands and knees. He's got his little yellow jacket on. He's absolutely scrabbling around and he is so knowledgeable. He was in amongst the dirt with the rest of us. He loved it. He absolutely loved it. That was right up there. Third dinosaur experience. Actually, talking on a program I did a few years ago, I went to see a bunch of vultures to do comparisons, and they were tame baby vultures. They weren't. They were absolute monsters. And they were just, then it's not like being pecked by a pigeon. These things are about 3 foot tall with beaks that could rip your fingers off.
So is a vulture an actual bird, or is it a collective for a species of bird?
A whole group of birds. Like we talk about owls, a group of birds. The vultures are quite a wide.
Vultures.
Yeah.
Favourite vulture?
Lammergeier.
Yeah, mine too. We're all fascinated by the dinosaurs. Why is that?
I think there's a couple of things here. I think for kids especially, we can play with our fears. We know that these things were really, really scary. You're talking T-Rex that was 16, 17 tons maybe, a little bit less, huge teeth, but it's never going to be wandering down the high street. It's gone. So you can play with that fear. But also it's an area where most of us adults don't really care about dinosaurs anymore, but kids can take ownership over that.
I care about them.
I know, well, I don't think we're normal in this room, to be fair, but I think the average person, you kind of get bogged down with bills and life and all this sort of stuff, whereas kids can have real agency. Well, that's, not a great one.
Oh, thanks.
But kids love it. Kids take ownership over that knowledge, and that's really important for them, I think.
Do we have trees because the trees were the dinosaurs' broccoli? Is that why we have trees?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, yeah. There are
Were
certain
they dinosaur
trees.
food?
Yeah, there are certain trees that really were dinosaur food. So things like monkey puzzle trees.
Right.
The reason they're so tall, they're so weird, they're so spiky and spiny is because in Argentina and Chile and a few other places, they were the main food for these huge long-necked dinosaurs. Things like Patagotitan, Argentinosaurus. So we've got that, what we call co-evolution between plants and animals that are now extinct, but we still see those plants that have evolved to get out of the way of the dinosaurs or to not be their food.
So we're exactly where we're meant to be. Don't worry what happens. Care about what happens, but don't worry that it's happened. That's just wasted energy, a future excuse not to, or a present excuse not to do something about anything in the future. Therefore, ergo, the dinosaurs were always meant to exist and be wiped out. What has wiping them out given us as opposed to them existing or in tandem with them existing in the first place? What is the whole story of the birth and the extinction, not of all, but of a lot of the dinosaurs? What is that in the universe's story? What chapter is that? Why does it exist? Where does it come?
Nature's never static, and this idea that we're going to last forever is a lovely idea, but we won't. So on average, and it's very variable, each species has about 10 million years. You get your chance. That's good luck, go. You might be a bit longer, a bit shorter. On average, they survive for about 10 million years. And things come, things go. Us, we've been around for about 315,000 years, so we are completely the new kids on the block. But by things going extinct allows new things to come in. So if you go to a party and there's only 4 of you in the room all night long, it's going to get really boring really quickly. Some of you will leave, some more people come in, and it makes things more interesting. It allows new opportunities for new conversations. Nature's just like that. So when the dinosaurs left, it created a huge vacuum in the environment, and nature hates a vacuum. So suddenly you've got these animals that can come in as predators, as herbivores, as intelligent things, as social things. Because there was so much competition there before, anything that started to evolve that was pushing itself or pushing the boundaries would have been squashed, eaten, and competed by huge Tyrannosaurus or massive Triceratops. The moment they're not there anymore, it's a blank slate.
But you look at patterns of species, don't you? From way back when. What predated the dinosaurs?
Oh, it depends how far back you want to go. If you want to go back 440 million years, we've got things like Anomalocaris, one of the biggest animals on the planet. It's a really angry-looking shrimp.
Wow.
We then go to things like Dunkleosteus.
Can I just say, in defence of the shrimps,
Yeah.
It's very difficult for them not to look angry, even if they were actually happy.
True. This thing was nearly a metre long. It had claws. It was one of the biggest things on the planet. So
maybe the most misunderstood thing.
Quite possibly, yeah. Maybe you're right. Maybe we need a society for appreciating prawns.
Yeah.
The Prawn Appreciation Society. We go through, and you said earlier about chapters. It is like chapters in a book.
Yeah.
And we go through these different chapters where at one point fish dominated our planet, and then we had the dinosaurs dominating our planet. I would say now mammals are doing really well.
And fish really did crawl out of the sea and evolve into things with legs.
Yep, if you go back to Canada about just under 300 million years ago, there was an animal that was about 1.5 meters long called Tiktaalik, which looked like a big salamandery thing, but it was a fish. It was a fish with specialised limbs that could walk on land. We can see that in an evolutionary step-by-step process. Not every piece is there, but it's like having a jigsaw set of 1 million pieces, and we've got a couple of 100,000 pieces.
And this is just our planet, and there are trillions of planets. Well, there are billions of planets in trillions of universes or galaxies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
All right. So you talk about us 315,000 years we've been around for, but that's humans. Before we are in ourselves an evolution of primates and things like that. So what about our gang? When did our gang start? Not 315,000 years ago.
No, so the first split from a chimpanzee-like ancestor was about 6.5 to 7 million years ago.
Right. So we're coming up for time. If you look at it through that lens?
Yeah, as a group we're doing pretty well. We've done well until, but even within that group, we've had things like Sahelanthropus, the first human-like, ape-like thing that was bipedal or upright on two legs. And then we carried on going, got to things like Australopithecines, which were about 3 million years ago, started using tools, but would have looked much more chimp-like than us. And then we get to our group, our family, almost like a scientific surname, the Homo group. So we are Homo sapiens, there was Homo neanderthalensis, the Neanderthals, there was even Homo naledi, these small South African versions, and Floresiensis, these tiny hobbit-like people who lived in Indonesia 100,000 years ago. Completely.
That's where it comes from, isn't it?
But you're right, we've all had this wonderful evolutionary tree, even within the last chapter of our story, and it's so
Why
cool.
have we downgraded dinosaurs that still exist today to bird status? Why have we done that? Is it because we'd be too excited still, and various governments around the world needs to keep us suppressed so we behave?
That's exactly it. The governments are suppressing the fact that no. We used to say that, but when it's changing again. This is why I think kids love science so much. I never think science is static. So we used to say birds are sort of like the descendants of dinosaurs. They're sort of like related to them. And then the more we looked into it, the more we looked at the taxonomy, the classification, we realised they are just dinosaurs. So that robin in your garden or the pigeon in the park is scientifically as much of a dinosaur, to me at least.
Why do you have to qualify it? It's a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Let's not qualify it.
That's
They're
it.
dinosaurs. It's
They're
a
now.
Robinsaurus.
Yeah.
It's a Thrushosaurus.
That's it. Well, yeah.
Yeah, and what about other species that are dinosaurs still?
There are 10,000 or so species of birds alive today, so technically the dinosaurs didn't fully go extinct 66 million years ago.
How come some survived and some didn't?
That's a big question we don't really know the answer to yet. So we think there were some places on the Earth that acted as oases where the devastating impact of the asteroid didn't quite have the same effect. Also, some groups of animals, like mammals, for example, may have been able to hibernate or bury themselves or survive off seeds and nuts that survived that nuclear winter you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it's a numbers game and a chance game.
Do you think some of them, because we know that, when there are various natural disasters, we know that various species are aware of them happening before we are aware of them happening. Whether before they happen at all is a different thing, I suppose. Do you think any species could have sensed where the meteorite was going to hit, or is it too sudden, too far away, too quick for that to happen?
There wouldn't. It's hard to say for sure, but typically with things like that, you don't get warnings like you do with an earthquake or a tsunami. You don't get rumblings before.
fast,
It would have been so
literally
quick.
out of nowhere.
Yeah. You might have seen a little red dot in the sky. Where are you going to run to?
Yeah.